Okay, let's talk about the Book of Revelation. You know the one. For centuries, its visions of beasts and battles have, well, they've baffled and terrified pretty much everyone. But what if it's not just some random, scary prophecy? What if it's actually a coded message? Today, we're going to find the key and crack that code. For so many people, the first impression is just chaos. It reads like this terrifying, almost psychedelic vision of the end of the world, right? You've got strange beasts, cosmic battles, intense judgment. Yeah, it's not exactly light reading. And when you run into imagery like this, a beast with 7 heads and 10 horns just rising out of the sea, I mean, it's easy to see why the whole book can feel completely impenetrable. It's like a cryptic puzzle with no solution in sight. But what if all that strange imagery wasn't random at all? What if it was a carefully constructed, coded message? So that is exactly how we're going to approach this, as a message that has a key. And our very first clue to unlocking it is to understand the style it was written in. Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. It turns out Revelation wasn't some totally unique, one-of-a-kind book. Not at all. To its original audience, its style wouldn't have been shocking in the slightest. In fact, it was part of a really popular and well-understood type of writing. And this is our first huge clue. Revelation belongs to a genre called apocalyptic literature. The easiest way to think about it is like how we have science fiction or fantasy today. It's a style with its own set of rules and tropes that the audience back then would have just gotten. They'd recognize it instantly. The word itself, apocalypsis, is actually just Greek for an unveiling or a revelation of truth. And this genre came with a whole standard toolkit. Symbolic language with beasts and numbers, visions guided by angels, journeys up to the heavens, a big story about good versus evil. These were all the classic hallmarks. The first readers, who were familiar with other books like Daniel or parts of Ezekiel, they wouldn't have been shocked by any of this. In fact, they would have been expecting it. So, here's the really crucial point. All this wild imagery wasn't meant to be taken literally, like you'd read a news report today. It was a shared symbolic language. It was a way for them to talk about incredible struggle and to hold on to this deep, ultimate hope during a time of crisis. The style itself was a huge part of the message. All right, so for our second clue, we've got to zoom out a bit from the text itself and look at the world it was born into. Because really, to decode Revelation, you have to understand the massive, overwhelming power it was written against. The first Christians, they were living right in the heart of the Roman Empire. And you have to understand, Rome wasn't just some political or military force. It was an absolute master of propaganda. It was constantly, tirelessly pushing this powerful myth about itself, the myth of its own eternal, divinely ordained victory. And this ideology, it was literally everywhere. The core message was pretty simple. Rome is chosen by the gods. The emperor is their agent here on earth. The empire is what brings peace and justice to everyone. Roman rule wasn't just a fact of life, it was presented as the absolute destiny of the entire world. And Rome really hammered this message home using these powerful, instantly recognizable symbols. You'd see it on coins, on monuments, on military banners. There's the emperor on a white horse, which meant unstoppable victory. The eagle, that wasn't just a bird, no way. It was a symbol of the gods' blessing and Rome's military might. Believe me, these were not subtle messages. Okay, so now we have our two keys, right? First, a literary genre that uses coded language. Second, a historical world totally dominated by Roman propaganda. And when you put those two things together, well, this is where the entire book just clicks open. Here's the secret. Revelation takes the familiar language of apocalyptic literature and uses it to systematically tear down and repurpose the symbols of Rome. It's brilliant, really. Scholars have a name for this. They call it a hidden transcript. It's basically a disguised public message that carries a secret meaning of resistance for people living under a powerful regime. Okay, check this out. Rome celebrated its conquering emperor on a white horse, right? So what does Revelation do? It introduces its own rider on a white horse, but this one is called King of Kings. It literally takes Rome's most powerful image of military triumph and just co-opts it, declaring that the real ultimate victory belongs to a completely different king.
Or how about this one? The Roman emperor demanded to be worshipped as a god. There was this physical act of bowing down called proskynesis. Well, Revelation confronts that imperial cult head-on. It describes these incredible scenes where that exact same act of worship happens, but it's given only to God and the Lamb. It's pointedly taking the highest form of devotion and redirecting it away from Caesar.
And get this, what about Rome's divine eagle? You know, the symbol of its special favor with the gods? Revelation takes that symbol and flips it completely on its head. The eagle in Revelation isn't a sign of blessing at all. It's a messenger flying through the sky, crying woe, 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 and announcing doom. It's just a brilliant, brilliant piece of symbolic judo.
So okay, once we've cracked the code, what's the ultimate message here? I mean, why go to all the trouble of creating this incredibly elaborate, symbolic protest piece? At its very heart, Revelation was a kind of survival manual. It was this powerful message of hope and defiance, written to strengthen the faith of a small, often persecuted community, a group of people who felt completely powerless against the massive, seemingly invincible machine that was the Roman Empire. The entire goal was to make this incredibly bold declaration that despite what everything looks like, despite Rome's crushing power and its claims to be divine, the true final victory doesn't belong to Caesar. It belongs to God.
And thinking about it this way completely reframes how we see the book, doesn't it? It isn't just some literal roadmap for the future. It's this profound work of both spiritual and political resistance. And here's the real twist. The victory it talks about isn't won through military might. It's won through faithful witness, even to the point of death, which perfectly mirrors the sacrifice of its central hero, the Lamb. You know, understanding how symbols were used, how they were weaponized and then reclaimed 2,000 years ago, it really forces us to look at our own world. And it leaves us with a pretty critical question to think about. What are the powerful symbols that shape our world today? And maybe more importantly, who gets to define what they mean?